My manager slammed a damage report onto the table. "Sign it." I looked down. Estimated loss: 717 Arshititian by Lin Meiyen. Responsible employee: me. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because the inventory wasn't destroyed. I'd personally counted every pallet less than an hour before I left work on Friday. Nothing was damaged. Nothing was missing. I looked back at my manager. "I'm not signing something that isn't true." He smiled. "You won't have a choice once security reviews the cameras." What he didn't know was that those same cameras were about to expose a lie much bigger than a missing shipment. Welcome back to Karma Stories Hub Official. Today's story is about a warehouse manager who tried to pin a $45,000 inventory loss on the wrong employee and accidentally exposed a fraud that would destroy his own career. If you enjoy workplace revenge and bad boss stories, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into today's story. My name is Ethan, and for 4 years I worked at Carson Distribution, a regional warehouse that supplied electronics to major retail stores. It wasn't exciting work, but it paid the bills. My wife, Emily, stayed home with our 6-year-old daughter, Ava, so my paycheck mattered. I wasn't trying to become a manager. I just wanted stable work, a clean record, and to go home every evening without drama. For the first 3 years, that's exactly what I had. Then Ryan Mercer became our new warehouse manager. Within days, everyone noticed the difference. Ryan loved talking about efficiency. He changed procedures before learning why they existed. He shortened inspections, reduced paperwork, and constantly reminded everyone that he knew better than people who had worked there for years. Most employees kept quiet. Arguing with Ryan usually meant getting the worst shifts. I handled it differently. I documented everything. Every inventory count, every damaged pallet, every unusual instruction. My previous manager had always said, "If it's important, write it down." That habit would eventually save my job. Ryan hated it. One afternoon, he stopped beside my workstation while I was updating inventory records. "You spend a lot of time keeping notes." "It's part of my job." He folded his arms. "Or maybe you're collecting evidence." I smiled politely. "I just like accurate records." He walked away without another word. That conversation lasted less than a minute. But after that, I noticed something change. My vacation request suddenly disappeared. My overtime hours were reduced. Ryan started criticizing small mistakes he'd ignored in everyone else. It wasn't enough to get me fired, just enough to remind me who was in charge. At the time, I thought it was nothing more than a manager with an ego. I had no idea he was already planning to use me for something much bigger. Every Friday, our warehouse received its most valuable shipment of the week: gaming consoles, high-end laptops, premium electronics. That Friday's delivery was worth just over $45,000. Company policy required 2 employees to inspect every pallet before it entered storage. Ryan walked over just before the truck arrived. "Ethan," he said, "you're handling today's shipment. Who's my second verifier?" "You won't need one." I looked at him. "Policy requires 2 people." Ryan shrugged. "I'm changing the policy." I kept my voice calm. "Can you send that instruction in an email?" For a split second, his expression changed. Then he forced a smile. "Forget it. I'll have Marcus help you." Marcus joined me 10 minutes later. and together we followed the standard process. We scanned every pallet, verified every serial number, photographed every security seal. Everything matched perfectly. At 4:42 p.m., we placed the shipment in aisle E14. I entered the final scan into the system. Inventory received. No damage. No shortages. I locked my scanner, clocked out, and went home. I slept perfectly that night because I had absolutely no idea by Monday morning someone would claim those same pallets had been destroyed. And somehow, I was already being blamed. Monday started like any other. I clocked in at 6:57 a.m., grabbed my scanner, and headed toward receiving. Before I reached the warehouse floor, Marcus hurried over. "Ethan." His voice was unusually serious. "Ryan wants you in the conference room. Now." I frowned. "What's going on?" Marcus shook his head. "I don't know, but HR is here." That was never a good sign. Inside the conference room sat Ryan, a representative from Human Resources named Lisa, and a thick folder in the middle of the table. Ryan didn't ask me to sit. He simply pushed a report toward me. "Read it," the title said. "Inventory Damage Report. Estimated Loss. Sifwan Wotsin Sembitin Bailin. Cause. Improper storage. Responsible employee, Ethan Carter." I read the page twice, then looked back at Ryan. "This isn't right." He leaned back confidently. "So, you're denying responsibility?" "I'm denying that anything was destroyed." Lisa finally spoke. "You inspected the shipment Friday?" "Yes." "Was anything damaged?" "No," Ryan interrupted. "That's not what our inspection found this morning." I kept my voice calm. "Where was the damage found?" He answered immediately. "Section C." I frowned. "That's impossible." "Why?" "Because I stored those pallets in Section E." Ryan smiled. "Our system says otherwise." "No," I replied. "It shouldn't." Ryan opened another folder. "This is your receiving report. My signature confirms I received the shipment. It doesn't confirm I destroyed it." His smile disappeared. "You're avoiding responsibility." "No, I'm correcting the facts." Lisa looked at both of us. "Can we verify where the shipment was stored?" "I can," I said. "Marcus was with me." Ryan crossed his arms. "We don't need another opinion." I looked directly at Lisa. "I'd like the security footage reviewed before anyone reaches a conclusion." Ryan answered before she could. "The cameras won't change anything." That response caught my attention. If he believed the footage supported him, why did he sound nervous? A few minutes later, the four of us walked onto the warehouse floor. Ryan stopped beside several crushed cardboard boxes. There, destroyed inventory. At first glance, it looked convincing. Broken boxes, plastic wrap, wood splinters. Then I noticed the shipping label. Different supplier, different product code. I picked it up. Ryan immediately snapped. "Don't touch anything." I ignored him. "This shipment isn't ours." Lisa looked at the label. "What do you mean?" "Our premium electronics arrived from Nevada. This box came from Texas," Ryan answered quickly. "They probably got mixed together." "They couldn't." "Why not?" "Because Friday's shipment used red security tape." I pointed across the damaged boxes. "There isn't a single piece of red tape here." Marcus nodded. "He's right." Ryan shot him an angry look, but said nothing. Back in the conference room, Ryan slid another document toward me. "I'll make this simple. Sign the statement admitting improper storage. We'll consider this an accident." I didn't even pick up the pen. I'm not signing something that isn't true. His face hardened. Then you're forcing us to take disciplinary action. Before I could answer, Lisa closed the folder. Not yet. She looked at Ryan. I want security to pull Friday night surveillance footage. For the first time that morning, Ryan hesitated, only for a second. Then he smiled. Fine. The cameras will prove exactly what happened. I nodded quietly, because I was thinking the same thing. The difference was, I believed the cameras would prove something completely different. And if I was right, someone in that room was about to have a very bad day. 10 minutes later, we were standing inside the warehouse security office. Tom, the security supervisor, greeted us with a confused look. Morning! What's going on? Lisa explained the situation. We need Friday night's camera footage for the premium electronics shipment. Tom nodded. No problem. He entered the date and time into the system. Within seconds, the recording appeared on the monitor. The video showed Marcus and me unloading the truck. We scanned every pallet, photographed every security seal, verified every serial number. Everything followed company procedure. Lisa watched quietly. So far, everything looks normal. Ryan didn't answer. He simply folded his arms. The recording continued. At 4:42 p.m., my forklift stopped in aisle E14, exactly where I'd said the shipment had been stored. Tom paused the video. Section E. Lisa slowly turned toward Ryan. I thought you said Section C. Ryan cleared his throat. They must have been moved later. Tom pressed play again. The warehouse gradually emptied as employees clocked out. At 7:58 p.m., movement appeared on the screen. A forklift entered aisle E14. The driver wore a baseball cap and a reflective vest. His face wasn't visible. He scanned all 6 pallets, then loaded them onto the forklift. Lisa leaned closer. Pause. Tom froze the frame. The pallets looked perfect. No broken boxes, no damage. Nothing had been crushed. Ryan shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The video resumed. The forklift drove toward loading dock 7. Tom switched to another camera. An unmarked truck slowly backed into the loading bay. The driver never entered the warehouse. Instead, the forklift operator loaded every pallet directly into the trailer. 1, 2, 3. All 6 pallets disappeared into the truck. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply removed. Tom stopped the recording. No inventory was destroyed. Lisa nodded. It left the building. Ryan finally spoke. There must have been an emergency transfer. Tom opened the shipping database. No transfer request. Ryan tried again. Maybe corporate approved it. Tom searched another system. No approval. No shipping order. No dispatch record. The room became completely silent. Tom opened the gate access log. Every truck leaving after hours requires manager authorization. He searched Friday night. One record appeared. Loading dock T, approved. Authorized by Ryan Mercer. Ryan immediately shook his head. That's impossible. I never approved it. Tom looked back at the screen. The system shows your employee badge. Ryan answered quickly. Someone stole my badge. Tom wasn't convinced. Our badges require fingerprint verification. Nobody spoke. Ryan's explanation had just fallen apart. David Reynolds, the operations director, entered the security office just as Tom finished explaining the gate log. He looked around the room. "I've been briefed." Then he turned to Ryan. "One question." Ryan nodded. "Why did you ask Ethan to sign a damage report before anyone reviewed the security footage?" Ryan opened his mouth, but nothing came out. David waited. Still no answer. Finally, he looked at Lisa. "Collect Ryan's company badge." Ryan's eyes widened. "What?" "Effective immediately. You're being placed on administrative leave, pending investigation." The confidence Ryan had shown all morning vanished. As security escorted him toward the door, he looked back at me. There was no anger in his face anymore, only panic, because he had just realized something. The cameras hadn't exposed me. They had exposed him. And deep down, I had a feeling this investigation was only beginning. Ryan was escorted out of the building without saying another word. The warehouse floor went completely silent. Everyone had seen it happen. The manager, who had spent months acting untouchable, had just lost his badge in front of the entire staff. Marcus walked over and quietly said, "I never thought I'd see that." Neither did I. But despite everything, one question still bothered me. If Ryan had approved the truck, where had the inventory gone? An hour later, David asked me to join him, Lisa and Tom, in the conference room. A warehouse map covered the table. David pointed to loading dock 7. "The cameras show the pallets leaving here," Tom added. "But there's one problem. No shipping documents exist. So whoever moved that inventory wanted it to disappear without leaving a paper trail." Lisa looked at me. "Ethan, did you notice anything unusual on Friday?" I thought back carefully. Then one memory stood out. Actually, yes. What was it? I remember seeing a white maintenance van parked behind the warehouse after everyone had clocked out. Tom frowned. Maintenance wasn't scheduled that evening. I know. That's why it seemed strange. David wrote it down immediately. It could be important. That afternoon, security began reviewing footage from the parking lot, the front entrance, the loading docks, even the employee parking area around 3 o'clock. Tom hurried into the conference room, carrying a tablet. "I found something." He placed it on the table. The parking lot camera showed the white maintenance van arriving at 7:35 p.m. 5 minutes later, a man climbed out, carrying a toolbox. His face was partially hidden by a baseball cap, but when he reached for the back door of the van, his sleeve pulled back for just a second. A large tattoo appeared on his right forearm. Marcus looked at the screen. "I know that tattoo." "So do I," I replied. "It belongs to Derek, the outside maintenance contractor who serviced our forklifts." David immediately checked the contractor's schedule. Derek hadn't been assigned to our warehouse that Friday. Not during the day, not at night. Lisa frowned. So why was he here? Tom searched the visitor log. There it is. Temporary contractor pass. Approved by Ryan Mercer. Nobody looked surprised anymore. The connection was becoming obvious. Ryan had approved Derek's after-hours access. Then the inventory disappeared. Before anyone could say another word, Sarah from accounting knocked on the door. She looked concerned. "I think we've found another problem." She handed David several invoices. "These freight charges don't match our shipping company. David examined the paperwork. The logos look real. Sarah nodded. But the company doesn't exist. I called the number. It was disconnected. Tom leaned forward. So the truck, Friday night, may have been part of a fake transport company. Sarah nodded. That's what it looks like. The room fell silent. This wasn't just missing inventory anymore. Someone had created fake shipping records, fake transportation, and possibly fake payments. This had been planned. As everyone gathered their notes, David's phone rang. He answered, listened for a few moments, then slowly looked up. Police have located Ryan. What happened? Lisa asked. He agreed to an interview. And? David took a deep breath. He denied everything. But he also claimed he had proof that someone inside the warehouse set him up. I looked around the room. If Ryan was lying, it was one last desperate attempt to save himself. But if he was telling the truth, then someone else inside the building was still involved, and none of us knew who it was. Ryan's statement changed the entire investigation. If he was lying, detectives would figure it out quickly. But if there was another person involved, everyone in the warehouse was now a potential suspect. The atmosphere changed overnight. Employees who normally joked during breaks barely spoke. People glanced over their shoulders before having conversations. No one wanted to be connected to the investigation. The next morning, corporate security interviewed employees one by one. When it was my turn, Michael Grant, the lead investigator, got straight to the point. Ethan, has Ryan ever asked you to ignore company procedures? Several times. Did you ever agree? No. I explained how Ryan had tried to eliminate the second verification rule and how he'd become frustrated whenever I asked for written instructions. Michael nodded. That probably saved your job. He paused before asking another question. Did Ryan ever seem worried about anything? I thought for a moment. Only documentation. He hated paperwork. He especially hated emails. Michael made a note in his file. Interesting. As I left the interview room, Marcus caught up with me. I remembered something. What? Last Thursday, the day before the shipment arrived, I saw Ryan arguing with Derek behind the maintenance bay. What were they arguing about? I couldn't hear everything, but I clearly heard Ryan say, "After Friday, we're finished." I stopped walking. Are you sure? Marcus nodded. I'd bet my paycheck on it. Those 4 words echoed in my head. After Friday, we're finished. It sounded less like a conversation and more like the end of a plan. That afternoon, Tom called David into the security office. A few minutes later, David asked me to join them. Tom had enhanced the parking lot footage. The image was clearer now. The maintenance van's license plate was visible. Tom ran it through the contractor database. It belongs to Derek. Then he opened another report. Here's the interesting part. The van entered at 7:35 p.m., but it never officially left. I frowned. How is that possible? The exit camera never recorded it. David looked confused. So where did it go? Tom zoomed in on an aerial map of the property. Behind the warehouse was an old service road that hadn't been used in years. It connected to a side gate that stayed locked. Tom pointed to the screen. If someone had a master key, they could leave without passing the main exit. David immediately asked, "Who has keys to that gate?" Tom answered without hesitation, only facilities, and the warehouse manager. The room fell silent. Another piece of the puzzle pointed directly at Ryan. Just as the meeting ended, Sarah from accounting rushed in again. I traced the fake shipping invoices. Everyone looked at her. They weren't random. They were all paid to the same business account. David asked, "Whose account?" Sarah handed him the report. Registered business. Mercer Logistics Consulting, LLC. David slowly looked up. Mercer. Ryan's last name. If the records were accurate, Ryan hadn't just approved the fake shipments. He had created the company receiving the money. Lisa folded her arms. "That's fraud." Michael nodded. "And if we can prove the money reached him, this case becomes much bigger than internal theft." For the first time since Monday, I realized this wasn't just about clearing my name. It was about exposing an entire scheme that had probably been running for months. And somewhere, someone else still knew exactly how it worked. The following morning, the warehouse looked more like a crime scene than a workplace. Corporate security was everywhere. Detectives walked through the loading docks with cameras. Every forklift was inspected. Every shipment from the past 6 months was being audited. No one complained. Everyone wanted to know how long this had been happening. Around 10 a.m., Michael asked me to meet him in the conference room. A stack of inventory reports sat on the table. "We've finished our first audit." "What did you find?" He slid the reports toward me. "Take a look at the dates." I immediately noticed a pattern. Every major inventory shortage had happened on a Friday. Every one involved expensive electronics. And every report carried Ryan's approval. "This wasn't random," I said. Michael nodded. "It was organized." Before we could continue, Sarah from accounting entered with another folder. "I found where the money went." The room became quiet. She opened a spreadsheet showing payments made to Mercer Logistics Consulting, LLC. They received over $380,000 during the last 8 months. David looked stunned. "Senshav buy one, Mayran." Sarah nodded. "And those payments match the dates of our missing inventory." The fraud was much larger than anyone expected. Ryan hadn't just stolen one shipment. He had allegedly built a system. That afternoon, Tom received a call from local police. He walked into the conference room with a slight smile. "They found Derek." "Where?" David asked. "He was stopped about 40 miles outside the city." "Did he cooperate?" "Not at first. But officers searched his maintenance van." Tom placed several photographs on the table. Inside the van were unopened gaming consoles, still sealed, still carrying Carson Distribution inventory labels, the same shipment Ryan claimed had been destroyed. There was no denying it anymore. The $45,000 shipment had never been damaged. It had been stolen. As everyone studied the photos, Michael's phone rang. He stepped outside to answer it. A minute later, he returned with an expression I hadn't seen before. "Good news!" Everyone looked at him. The district attorney approved search warrants. "For Ryan?" Michael nodded. "And for every property connected to Mercer Logistics." By evening, investigators had searched Ryan's office, his home, and a rented storage unit. Inside the storage unit, they found more company property: laptops, networking equipment, commercial monitors. Some items were still in their original boxes. The evidence was overwhelming. The next morning, HR called me into Lisa's office. She handed me an official letter. I opened it slowly. It confirmed that I had been fully cleared of all wrongdoing. Every disciplinary note Ryan had placed in my personnel file was removed. Every negative performance review he had written was voided. Lisa smiled. "You never should have been accused." I nodded. "I appreciate that." Then she added something unexpected. "The company would also like to formally apologize. For the first time all week, I finally felt like I could breathe again. My job was safe. My reputation was restored. But the investigation wasn't over yet, because Ryan still claimed someone inside the warehouse had betrayed him, and investigators were about to discover he was telling the truth, just not in the way anyone expected. Monday morning, Michael called an emergency meeting. Only a handful of people were invited. David, Lisa, Tom, me, and 2 detectives from the fraud unit. As soon as everyone sat down, Michael placed a laptop on the table. We recovered deleted files from Ryan's company computer. David leaned forward. "Anything useful?" Michael nodded. "More than we expected." He opened a spreadsheet hidden inside an ordinary budget folder. The file was named Friday XLXX. At first glance, it looked like a normal inventory report. Then Michael scrolled down. Shipment numbers, pallet locations, estimated resale values, employee schedules. Everything was carefully organized. "This wasn't created after the theft," Michael said. "It was used to plan it." I looked closer at one column labeled Receiving Staff. My name appeared several times. Next to it were short notes. Reliable, follows policy, avoid. Then I reached the final entry, the one for the missing $45,000 shipment. Next to my name, it read, "Use if necessary." A chill ran through me. "What does that mean?" Michael answered quietly. "We believe Ryan intended to blame you if anything went wrong." The room fell silent. I thought back to Monday morning. The damage report, the pressure to sign it. It hadn't been a last-minute decision. It had been planned before the truck even arrived. Just then, Tom walked in carrying another report. "We've identified the truck driver." Everyone looked at him. "It wasn't Derek. It was a temporary driver hired under a fake identity." "Did you find him?" Tom nodded. "Yes, he agreed to talk." According to the driver, Ryan paid him in cash to collect surplus inventory. He claimed he believed everything was legal. When detectives showed him photos of the stolen products, he immediately cooperated. More importantly, he identified another person who had helped load the truck. David looked up. "Who?" Tom turned the page. "A warehouse supervisor. Kevin." I couldn't believe it. Kevin had worked there for nearly 10 years. He'd even apologized to me after Ryan was suspended. Apparently, that apology had been driven by guilt. By the afternoon, police interviewed Kevin. At first, he denied everything. Then detectives showed him the surveillance footage, the fake invoices, the payment records, and finally, the recovered shipment from Derek's van. Within an hour, Kevin admitted he had changed inventory records to hide missing products. He insisted Ryan had planned everything. He claimed he only helped because he was deep in debt. Whether that was true or not, it didn't change the facts. The fraud had finally been exposed, and every person involved was now being held accountable. With Kevin's confession, the investigation finally reached its conclusion. Over the next 2 weeks, detectives compared his statement with the company records. Everything matched. Ryan had created the fake logistics company. Derek handled the after-hours pickups. Kevin altered inventory records to make the missing products appear damaged or transferred. It was a simple system until one shipment didn't go according to plan. That shipment was the $45,000 worth of gaming consoles I had received. Ryan's original plan depended on one thing: breaking company procedure. If I had accepted his instruction to process the shipment alone, there would have been no second witness when Marcus insisted on following policy with me. Ryan's backup plan became blaming the employee who signed the receiving report, me. But he made one critical mistake. He underestimated how detailed our documentation was. The scans, the photographs, the location records, and most importantly, the security cameras. A month later, David called the entire warehouse together. Everyone gathered near the loading docks. He stood in front of the staff with Lisa beside him. I want to thank every employee who cooperated during this investigation. He paused before continuing. The company has recovered most of the stolen inventory. The remaining losses are being handled through insurance and legal action. Then he announced several permanent changes. Every high-value shipment would require 2 verified employees. After-hours loading would need approval from 2 separate managers. Security footage for premium inventory would be automatically reviewed. No employee could be disciplined for a major inventory loss without an independent investigation. The room broke into applause. Then David looked directly at me. One more thing. He walked over carrying a framed certificate. Ethan, your professionalism protected this company. If you had ignored procedure, if you had signed that false report, we might never have uncovered this fraud. He handed me the certificate. Across the top were 2 simple words: integrity matters. Everyone applauded. Marcus smiled. Tom shook my hand. Even employees who barely knew me came over afterward to say congratulations. But the best part wasn't the certificate. It wasn't the applause. It was knowing that my reputation had been restored. As I drove home that evening, I thought about everything that had happened. For days, I believed my career was over. One false accusation almost destroyed 4 years of honest work. What saved me wasn't luck. It wasn't a powerful lawyer. It wasn't revenge. It was something much simpler: following company procedures, keeping accurate records, and refusing to sign something I knew wasn't true. Sometimes, doing the right thing feels harder in the moment, but in the end, it's the only decision you never regret. Lesson from the story. Never admit responsibility for something you didn't do just because someone in authority pressures you. Stay calm, document everything, follow the proper process, and let the facts speak for themselves. Integrity may take longer to prove, but it protects you when it matters most. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves workplace revenge stories.